Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 3. A warm welcome to our guests. We have some beautiful guest facilitators with us, so a warm welcome to you. And we look forward to our day 3. We have some really exciting offerings for you. So as you can see, we have a beautiful creative offering for you in the next few minutes. And we will be doing our usual reflection and check-in in our smaller groups. And then we go into our first substantial session. So that is session 5, which is what will get us there. And that will be all about transformation. So we have a transformation council, some wonderful voices from various people, leaders in the institutions, and you'll be hearing from them. And then we have a wonderful wellness session, which is going to be a very, I would say, healing and relaxing session for all of us. We'll all be going through that session. And then we have a session on psychological safety, which is a very important component of transformation and having transformative conversations. After that, we'll have a tea break. And when we come back from the tea break, we'll be going straight into what we are calling courageous conversation groups. And there we'll be talking more about psychological safety. And we have hosts who will be welcoming you into those groups. And after that will be another beautiful wellness session. So you see that we are taking care of your wellness this morning, and we are hoping that you're going to end the day feeling wonderfully relaxed and in tune and connected to yourself and to your community here. So that's what our program looks like today. So day 1 was all about forming the flock. That was all about autonomy and being responsible for self. Day 2, which was yesterday, was all about being loyal to our purpose, alignment, and moving in the same direction. And then today is a day where we say it's about cohesion. So honking is helpful. Honking means we are making a noise, we are speaking, we are communicating and connecting with each other. And so it's all about stay close to your neighbor. So today is going to be a day of cohesion. Tomorrow, day 4, the final day, is further together as leaders and all about shared leadership and taking turns at the front. So that's what our 4 days look like. And we look forward to our day.
Good morning, colleagues. Wonderful to be here with you on day 3. So we have 2 creative offerings this morning from Lesiba, Papo, and from Nonkululeko and Ntshangase from Sanbi. And that will be a musical performance, and that is followed by a poem from Jarmaine Magoai. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Jarmaine, from the National Museum in Bloemfontein. And when we were listening to Jarmaine's poem, we found it so moving, but we all felt we wanted to hear it a second time because it goes by so quickly. So you'll notice when we play Jarmaine's contribution, we will play it for a second time. And the words are very evocative, and we felt they were very relevant for today's conversations. So Chanel will also post the words of Jarmaine's spoken word contribution in the chat if you want to follow along in the chat. So as Des mentioned, we started on day 1 with where we came from with our video to the DSI. We then spoke about the assessments, where we're going, the Ikutwana initiative lying ahead for us. Then yesterday morning, we spoke about where we are, and we got to see each of our colleagues' work in progress that they're busy with. And in the afternoon, we were looking at what we're all busy doing and what we're aspiring to. And now this morning, we're asking the question, as a flock, what will get us to where we need to be going? And the themes for today speak to this question: what will get us to where we need to be going? So colleagues, there are a few people that's having sound issues, and we're hoping that you're going to bear with your tech, and we're sending blessings, tech magic your way, and we're hoping that that all gets sorted. Chanel is maybe the best person to speak to directly. You can direct message Chanel if you've got any issues, any tech issues. So with that, colleagues, let's listen to Lesiba and Nonkululeko, followed by Jarmaine.
Standing on my knees, I'm begging, please stop playing games. I don't know what you do, but you do it well. I'm out of your place. You got me begging you for mercy. Why won't you release me? You got me begging you for mercy. Why won't you release me? Why won't you release me? Oh, and don't be I'm also go call and you lean and Begavela, Nilin and Dojayam, Gilinde, Giabu Yatalo. Begavela, Nilin and Dojayam, Gilinde, Giabu Yatalo. Boy, it's Ntshangase, Ntshangase, ngakugcina kudala, Ntshangase, elunyaka. Boy, it's Ntshangase, Ntshangase, ngakugcina kudala, Ntshangase, bekezela, ngilinde ndoda yam, ngilinde.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I think those of us with our apartheid education is also very intrigued to know the lyrics of that beautiful song. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. And now for Jarmaine's piece.
It takes infinite love to shift me from my remote being to where life is. I know that at times anyone else, they probably wouldn't love me. Only you can. Though I do not have anything to give, keep me unsettled. Before anything else can happen, remind me it does not work like that. Singing about what I can do. It is not about me doing my thing. It does not work like that. Let my ears hear when my days speak. Let your breath, Almighty One, make me understand. Let me mellow out in your completeness. Even when I have no wise words to say to you, you still amaze me. You keep loving me. Let me stand where you have positioned me, and I shall wait that I may find relief. Make me be aware that I do not know how to live for tomorrow on my own.
Thank you so much, Jarmaine. So beautiful. I'm so moved by that poem. Let me stand where you have positioned me. Let me stand where you have positioned me. And it brings us back to our blessing on day one, that we have been called to do this work. This is sacred work. Let us stand where we have been positioned to do this work that we have been called to do. Thank you so much. So beautiful. Sure, colleagues, I hope your hearts are as warm as mine and as wide open as mine is so very early on this morning, such beautiful open-hearted feelings. And it's with those feelings that we want to send you into your breakaway groups to do your check-in. We're going to use the same check-in refrain that we have been using for the last few days. So we'll have 15 minutes in the breakaway groups, and we hope you meet some new colleagues that you haven't yet had an opportunity to connect with and to share with in these past 2 days. Mkhatsi asks Chanel if we can just post, or Fulu, if we can just post those check-in questions in the chat. There you go. Thanks, Fulu. And have a wonderful time checking in with your colleagues, and we'll see you in 15 minutes for our Transformation Council. We can take 1 or 2 comments, mindful of time. We can maybe just get a few, very few voices in. That would be lovely.
Or write in the chat.
Cool.
Morning, Pumlani.
Morning, colleagues, and morning, everyone. One thing that the common thing that we all experience in the group is that unlike the first day, the second day was at least the difference was the fact that there were a lot of negatives in the first day. People were experiencing load shedding and this struggling to log in, but at least things were a little bit better on the second day. A lot of positives. People were able to get into groups, watch videos, very interesting. They seem people, they like the videos and all the variety, where unlike listening to one-man show, people just talking slides after slides, at least they like the approach that was there, and that's one thing that we all in the group seem to agree upon, and the fact that at least it seems as if what happened yesterday is more likely to happen today. We are crossing the fingers. No load shedding. People will enjoy the gathering up to the end. And that's it. Let me pause now.
Thank you, Pumlani. Thank you for that. So grateful that people had a better connection yesterday, and love the fact that we're being held accountable to make it as participative and interactive as possible. Thank you for that. That's wonderful feedback. Thank you. 1 or 2 more comments of what emerged from your check-in, what you loved, what you learned, what's still lingering, a gratitude.
Good morning, everyone. I was just saying to Isabel how I really miss the physical gatherings. And I would like to propose that maybe in the future that the NSC offer a subsidized fee for conferences, but pay for presenters in full. And I think maybe this is something that we can consider going forward.
Thank you. That is also so lovely to hear that you're longing for that physical connection and for being together in one room. And having the warm bodies all around, and having those lovely performances live, and having the conversations live, and the cafes and the check-in and the socializing. So that's a lovely idea. Are there other business models we can follow? What about maybe subsidized or shared cost, or what are some other ways in which we can make it possible? Thank you, Aisha. Thank you for that. It's lovely to know that we're all yearning to be together. That's lovely. Yeah, 1 more comment maybe before we go into our first session of the day, our first formal session of the day. Is that Ntshangase saying my group was taken away by the videos and how they show the diversity of the collections. Also that more collection institutions need to be invited to be part of the NSCF. Okay, so we've got to make the circle bigger. We've got to spread the love. Ntshangase is about spreading the love and making the circle bigger, and loving the diversity of the different collections. And as Des and I posted in the chat yesterday, seeing you guys in your natural habitats, that was so lovely. seeing you in your natural habitats. Thanks, Mklatsi. Please include more students, more youth. Yeah, that's another idea, is to actually bring in, we've had, I think there were 1 or 2 interns in our leadership session, which was wonderful. And do we invite maybe more youth just to be part of this conversation and to inspire passion for them for a future career? That's a lovely idea. That's a lovely idea. So, yeah, so these things are all, we're recording all of these things and looking how we can meet them, going forward. Any last burning question or contribution or gratitude from the check-ins before I hand back to Des? Good, you all feel checked in and present and ready for the day. So the interlocking themes of our day 3 has got to do with the theme of transformation. It's got to do with the theme of wellness and with the theme of psychological safety. And we hope that you guys will see how these things are inextricably woven in together with each other, and how all of those things are absolutely necessary for us to be able to effectively implement the manual and create thriving teams and secured collections and vibrant research that's relevant to our country. So with that, back to you, Des.
Thank you. Thank you, Ilse. Okay, so we are going into our Transformation Council session now. The idea of a Transformation Council was really for us to hear from the community, from leaders in the community who have been working quite actively with transformation. And so the word council here is used in the sense of bringing wisdom and helping the system to see, you know, what it means to work intentionally with transformation. So they'll be sharing very authentically, you know, all the challenges, the successes, and really from quite a personal level in the institution. So we asked 5 leaders to come and share with us, and each of them will be sharing for 5 minutes. And we sent them some reflection questions. So I'm just going to share the questions that was sent. So each person was asked to speak on the following. What are the factors and conditions that have enabled you to work with intention around areas of transformation? How have you worked towards achieving cohesion through building relationships, better communication, and collaboration in your institution? And then what has been your greatest challenge and how have you dealt with it? So each person has, well, I'm giving you from say 5 to 7 minutes. We're capping it at 7 minutes, but if you can keep it at 5, that will be fantastic. And so I'm going to just tell you who are the speakers. So we've got Aisha, Maya Kiso. This is in alphabetical order. Angus Patterson, Isabel Rong, Sanali Siwe, Mia, and Yashika Singh. And so this is not the order that you're speaking. I'm actually going to say to you that you can decide who would like to start. I know that Yashika and Sanali Siwe is from the same organization, so yours would probably follow each other. So we will start with somebody, and we've asked each person to prepare just to prepare something. So we don't expect them to have slides or anything formal. So some of them will just speak. If somebody does have slides, that's fine. Chanel will share that. Okay, so I think we're ready to go.
So on the first question, there we go. On the first question, what is the factors and conditions that enabled you to work with intention? Well, this was the real difficult question to answer. I had to get rid of my ignorance regarding discrimination, and lots of the interactions with the NSCF actually brought that to the fore. I had to put myself in somebody else's shoes, and it was a very painful process, but wow, was it liberating. So it motivates me to a certain extent to take things forward and try and make a difference. So on the second question, how have you worked towards achieving cohesion? Well, at first, we started having, much like the check-in sessions in what we do here, in our business and science meetings, I split up the meetings to have a proper business meeting and then a forum. I also called it a forum, a biosystematics forum, where we could only talk about things of the soul, or to do, you know, entertaining science, things that people would like, instead of complaining about admin, etc. So in general, the people found it very difficult to start off, but eventually they started relaxing and they understood that they can speak up, and it sort of leveled the playing field for everyone. So the sentiment started becoming clear. The people could really grapple with issues in, I think, a safer environment than just sitting there one-on-one, or perhaps having an argument in a corridor. So strange enough, there was better cohesion in the group, and some friendships actually started getting through, as I have built friendships in the NSCF through a similar process. So we've also got a formal development program at work, where we have like a succession plan exercise, where you have a person and the person choose their mentor. So it's a totally free interaction that people can take forward, and again, it's a mixture of science and transformation and interaction and learning and soft skills that comes with it. And also we have a transformation committee. It's unfortunately haven't met lately, but yes, those are things that's governing more formal activities in transformation. And yeah, I don't want to dig too deeply into that. I don't think it's quite appropriate here, but we do have a committee like that, and I think they're successful. So what's the third thing? Your greatest challenges. Oh yes. It's this absolutely ingrained resistance from some sort, and I think I'm not quite sure what to make of it. I think it's an ingrained fear for exposure, and maybe to overstep social boundaries. We've tried to open those conversations. I've had my door open, and strange enough, not strange enough, it was wonderful for some people to come forward and have that courageous conversation with me. Actually starting the conversation with saying, this is a courageous conversation. So it was wonderful for them, and for the response that I got for people to actually participate. The one most frustrating thing is for me to deal with denial, and I haven't found a recipe yet to work past that one. Maybe you guys can help me. Thank you. That's my story.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was really a great start, very authentic from the heart. So we also encourage you to take notes, note down any questions or anything that you felt stood out for you, and please take that into the Courageous Conversation session later on. Okay, who is ready to go next?
I can go.
Thank you, Aisha. Go ahead.
Thanks, Desiree. My name is Aisha. I work for Iziko Museums as the Chief Collections Manager for Natural History. Just a little bit about myself. I joined Iziko as a technical assistant after I matriculated. I remembered how scarce opportunities were at the time and how difficult it was for me. I had to work very hard to prove myself. In addition, I do not possess an appropriate degree, though I have done many other studies. An opportunity finally presented itself a few years later when the collections manager retired. A month later, I got employed as the assistant collections manager and soon thereafter, the collections manager. Over the years, I've invested heavily in myself and have discovered that I enjoy online learning. I started off with collections management and soon delved into operations management, human resource management, financial management, diversity management, etc. With the information gained, I was able to identify, in my opinion, what management approach works and what does not work, and what I think our institution requires to create a better and a more inclusive workplace. Challenges persist. For example, some staff are reluctant to adapt to new circumstances or new ways of doing things. Others enjoy working with their previous teams and are not open working with new teams. There is still this tendency to treat people differently based on their educational background. There's a lack of transparency and a lack of resources. So with the challenges in mind, I embarked on the following plan: to exercise transparency. I openly share feedback, expectations, my mistakes, setbacks, and encourage questions. I also freely share my knowledge on collections management. I provide training and guidance when possible. I'm actively searching for and sharing learning opportunities with staff. It is very important to me to get to know the staff that I supervise, to say thank you, to praise, to reward, and to encourage. I'm also actively working on creating learning opportunities for junior staff. I often tell colleagues, and this is really funny, I often tell them I'm very busy, but please do disturb me. I don't mind whether you're sending me a WhatsApp message or you're calling me or sending me email. Even if I'm at home, I don't mind. Over the years, I have invested in many staff members, internal and external, students, learners, and visitors from all walks of life. It makes me happy to help where I can and to see others grow. If they move onwards, even if they move onwards, my hope is that they too will invest in South Africa, and that is all that matters to me. I am very grateful for all the opportunities that I've been blessed with, but I must confess, leading change is one of the most difficult ones. I try my very best every single day to live by this Bible verse: treat others the same way you want to be treated. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Thank you very much for that heartfelt sharing. Much appreciated. Okay, so we would like to have our third speaker. Who's going to jump in next? Angus, are you going to go next? Because I think Yashika and Sanelisiwe will go together. Do you mind?
Yeah,
okay.
I can go.
Thanks, Angus. Over to you.
Yeah, leading a South African organization is always challenging, particularly one that you inherit with deep inequities and deep scars from the past. And I think the key thing in understanding of what are the prerequisites that enable you to work with that, the first really is to start with yourself and find out what you believe in, because if you don't believe in what you want to do, then you shouldn't be leading an organization. And if your internal values are against those of what the country is trying to achieve, then you shouldn't be leading an organization. The next bit is to make sure that you have staff that you can really trust and people that you're happy to listen to. And those people need to be different to you. We all have our own lenses. I can't hide the fact that I come from a privileged background and I'm a white male, and generally when you have the leadership walks, I tend to end up outside of the building. So I mean, not the leadership work, the privilege walk. So one's got to recognize who you are and what blind spots you have. And you need to surround yourself with different people who have different life experiences, because you cannot speak for a person who lived through apartheid as a black person. You cannot speak on gender issues if you are of one gender. You can't talk on sexuality if you're a cisgender heterosexual person. So you really need to surround yourself with people that you trust and they trust you, so that they can speak up, so that you can see what your blind spots are. How do you then make sure that you get cohesion? I think by listening, by having a team that is strong. I'm very fortunate to have teams in SIAP that speak up, and we bump heads and we have deep discussions. In fact, I had a very deep discussion with a member of the SIAP NSCF team last week around leadership, how we're going to do things, what we do, and all those type of things. And one's also got to learn to row the boat back. One's got to learn to say sorry. One's got to learn to say, yeah, I didn't see it from that perspective. And one's got to really learn to listen. And I think that's the key bit. So I wrote 4 things down: trust, lots of crying, sorry, and lots of listening. And then the most challenging thing for myself personally, I think, is balancing an A-type personality with the concepts of inherent dominance attributes that you may have as a white male, privileged individual, cisgender. I'm also very good looking. You know, how you balance all of that. And how you balance that with also being an A-type person. So you really got to learn to shut up, and that took me a while. And also wait your turn. You know, you're not the person to jump in first, even though you're dying to jump in first. You know, there are lots of people that are more important than you, that have got life experiences that are more valued, and their life experiences generally mirror a far larger gradation of the population. I mean, I come from probably 3% of the population, maybe 2% actually, if you take English into account. English white males make up about 2% of the population. So no, I mustn't be the top of the list to start talking, but I also must lead. So I think it comes from Mandela. I think the one thing you must do is learn to lead from behind, and I think that's a key thing. And the other thing is to admit that you're continually learning. All the time you get things wrong, and therefore you better learn to be able to say sorry, and you better learn to be able to trust your staff. And I think we've made some good progress with SIAP, but it wasn't me. It was I was just one small component. I've got some very important partners in the Institute. I'm not going to name them because it's really the whole Institute, but I think many of you know them within SIAP and within the NSCF, and they've played a fantastic role. And they are not white male people. They're people that do this. And the last thing I want to share was, in my journey, the race thing's always been front and foremost, but I got onto the gender thing a little bit lately, and eventually someone said to me, Angus, do you respect Juliet and Francesca and Nikki and Ramila and all those people? And I said, no, absolutely, I respect them. So I said, so tell me, if you've got 5 people that tell you that there's an issue, and you respect them, you'll listen to them, eh? And I said, yeah. So I said, well, these 5 women are telling you there's an issue, so therefore listen. And I think that's the key bit, you know. You can't always see it through your own glasses. But if you have respected colleagues that tell you there's an issue, you know what? There's an issue, you know, and then you need to deal with it. So I'll shut up now.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Angus. That was really very authentic. And I think there are several comments in the chat there relating to what you have said. So also for the others, I think people are really relating to these sharings. Thank you. So we're going to hand over to Yashika Singh. Will you go next?
Thank you, Des. Good morning, colleagues. Yes, I'm going to try and speak about SANBI and where I find myself in multi-level teams. So looking at my stuff, a bit distracted, but it's okay. The KZN Herbarium is one team, and I'll leave that to Lesiba to speak about more. And then I operate at a director level, at a directorate level with a group of colleagues, and a division level with a few more colleagues added to the director level, and then above that, at branch level with more colleagues. And what I found are factors that enable me to move through the transformation is the team. And I remind myself that team is together, everyone achieves more. So with all 4 teams, I remind myself that. The enabler 2 for me is that from 2011, I've been working with knowledge on the King's Commission. And if you know that there was a commission chaired by Judge Mervyn King, and they gave us strategic management and lots of details about drivers that will drive our business plan and our strategy. And one of the drivers is organizational culture. And so the King's Commission Report 3 specifically says we should be operating in an adaptive organizational culture and not a strong or unhealthy or weak culture. Although as managers, we find that there are elements from the strong, unhealthy, and weak that come in. Sometimes we choose to ignore them, and sometimes we think, okay, let's address them if we have the correct forum. And the third enabler for me has been, and the greatest one, was the NSCF leadership training. So from 2018, as leaders, we met with Des and Elsa, and in sessions at least twice a year. And I would come back to the KZN Herbarium team and share this with them. I've introduced the staff, including the non-collection staff, like our admin staff, to the NSCF, as well as to the techniques that we learned at these sessions. And some of the techniques were journaling, conversations for growth, like the fishbowl, cafe style, active listening. However, something about sharing this with colleagues at the KZN Herbarium never gelled us. It just wasn't working. I think I was just sharing and nothing else. Until the forum in the Western Cape, when CC, Courageous Conversations, really rose, and Senator Lesiba emerged as the leader for us at the Herbarium. And that's when we really took off with our transformation. Some of the lessons and learnings I have from this is, and I share with managers, is be open to others taking a lead in transformation. It is possible to be open. Be flexible on topics that come forward. Don't take things personally, and encourage feedback and work through the feedback. So my greatest challenge in these multi-teams is the KZN Herbarium team. I colored it using the flocking birds template. I would color it amber. We still a work in progress. I still need to work on some of the things I picked up from the NSCF training. At the directorate level, we're closer to green. And there are a couple of reasons for that. 2 of my colleagues from the National Herbarium and the Compton Herbarium also joined me in the NSCF training. So we have a platform of leaders that have the insight into the same training. So I would strongly recommend that that leadership training be rolled out on a yearly basis for young leaders and provide them with that information to start leading. We also don't see each other hierarchical in the directorate level. We more as colleagues, and even if someone's acting director, they're still equal to the rest and still able to capture the strengths of the others more easily than in the other teams. At the division level, that's rare. And at the branch level, that's rare. So that leads me to the greatest challenge that I have been dealing with. At the division level, there's non-inclusivity. There are colleagues at my level who are eligible to join that divisional team and build the collaboration greater and move us forward. However, there's some resistance to including those colleagues. And from 2020, I've been trying to raise this at formal meetings, but it hasn't taken off. The good news is that in a cafe-style conversation last month, I think I'm starting to get some buy-in that these colleagues can be included. The other greatest challenge I have is the use of titles among peers. So for the KZN Herbarium, the directorate level managers and the branch level managers, we address each other by first names. In our division, among our division managers, that team, we have inconsistencies. So if you have a doctorate or you are a professor, then you are addressed by your title and surname. However, if you don't have these titles, you are addressed by your first name. So I researched that and I found a few articles that said that in Africa, the academic titles, dropping academic titles are taking very long to be removed, and the continent that's slow is Africa. So I've shared this with the KZN Herbarium staff as well as the division managers. Achieving cohesion through building relationships. The first thing I had to do after the NSCF training sessions was to look at my strengths and weaknesses and to know that for my weaknesses, I wasn't alone, that there were teams that had the strengths and could complement my weaknesses. I had to remind myself to start respect for differences. Not that it wasn't happening, but more consciously now. And then the very beautiful symbol of active learning, active listening, the Chinese symbol, I utilize that and to remind me that I need to engage the ears, the eyes, the mind, and the heart. There's also gratitude that we picked up from the NSCF training, and more gratitude is being expressed. Recently we had acknowledgement of Senator Lesiba's work in the self-change management sessions, and she received the Head of Cost Centers award for that. And then as a manager, I realize I'm not alone and not working with this full workload, struggling along, that I have teams that will help me. Moving forward, one has to develop resilience to move forward through all this uncertainty and new ways of doing things. And new ways will be like, previously, if you took the lead for something, you now give someone else an opportunity. One internalized belief that I had was with planning, everything should work well always. COVID-19 came through and gave me a big lesson that you can only plan that much and you need to go with the flow. So I've come up with an acronym for myself, and it's called LIFE. And it reads, let go of internalized beliefs, turn fear into fuel for easy success. Thank you. Yes.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you, Yashika, for sharing your wisdom. And there were so many gems in your sharing. I really loved how you referred to all the tools that you've learned over the years, you know, and how you've applied them. So I'm sure this community is valuing that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, Yashika, so we're going to move now to Sunny Lesiba, who is also part of the same institution, and she's going to talk from a different level. So Sunny, over to you.
So good morning, distant relatives, extended family. I'm Sunny Lesiba from the KwaZulu-Natal Herbarium, and basically in an effort to share how we have been working intentionally around transformation within our institution, I will just basically take you on what our journey has looked like. Key to what we've managed to achieve so far has been amazing leadership support. I have a supervisor and manager who are fully behind the transformational work that we do. I also have amazing colleagues who come as they are. We are willing to learn from one another. There's an acceptance of growth. We are not our past selves. I don't think anybody wants to be. We are transforming into better versions of ourselves continuously. Egos are checked at the gate, and the team creates a generally carefree, super supportive, and super consultative environment. Third factor is our organizational culture. See now, our umbrella institute is quite corporate, with a colonial history whose effects still linger to this day. This obviously will have an impact on people's attitudes towards themselves, each other, and their jobs. Now, though transformational work is being carried out in bigger centers, I can only imagine that it is more difficult simply because of the sheer numbers and that the existing organizational culture is already firmly entrenched. Us being a smaller group, I think has worked to our advantage. With a singular leader decisively wanting the transformation, it becomes easier for agents of change to do their work. And when colleagues see their leaders being involved, I think it makes it easier to not only open up about people's experiences and perceptions, but to now actively engage in solutions. So we move from where people are being exploited as per our history to enrich the colonial structures, these scientific collections, to actively now being not just participants, but also people that benefit from them. Another one is organizational communication. It was quite tricky, but it still worked in our favor because given how this was communicated with everyone from inception, it was not that difficult to get most colleagues buy-in into the process. However, to be perfectly honest, that doesn't mean that it was without its own teething problems. These I will discuss further in the challenges. How have we worked towards building cohesion? So we facilitate the monthly change management sessions that Yashika has referred to. And during these, we cover a wide range of topics and activities that speak to the overall individual's well-being and development so that they can be a valuable asset to the team. And if we refer to something that we spoke on the first day, that would be autonomy. And we also have standalone team building sessions like you see in the pictures here below. And that does what? Builds cohesion. But there are other factors, we'll get to them now. We also have numerous team projects at work that have only been as successful as they are due to the high level of commitment from the team. There's assignment fast tracking, which I think Yashika mentioned I'm responsible for. So on your right, you're looking at what our G drive for one assignment, I think this was assignment 8, as you can see, there are contributions from everyone in the team. We have manual implementation down here on your bottom right-hand corner that Winston is responsible for. This is basically a screenshot from a meeting. And then this is a recent outreach project that we did. It was Minoli, myself, and Pumelele who were there physically, but trust and believe, most of the team was actually involved in getting us there, in making sure that we had everything that we needed. So we are super grateful for that. And then we also have various meetings that are led by various staff members, and that speaks to what? Shared leadership. So for health and safety, you can see Rangani down at the bottom. He's the one who leads those meetings. On your right is Talia, who runs our Brahms 8 database meetings. And then there's a garden group that Minoli is a part of. All of these have parts that will be the responsibility of other staff members. So within the actual meeting, there's a task that's assigned to another staff members, and all of them have check-in and check-out questions just to gauge where are people emotionally, mentally, workload-wise, and so forth. And that, also builds cohesion. The fourth factor is communication. Now, communication on our team is on another level. We speak via Microsoft Teams, texting, calling, WhatsApp, texting, calling, emails, phone calls, meetings. The level of reliance as well on each other as a team to just pull through is incredibly high. We collaborate on various projects, just as I've shown you above. And for us to excel in those as a team, we have to be brilliant individually. Now, not only do I know that I can rely on each team member to bring their A game, I know it will be on time. I probably paint a picture of people who are in each other's faces 24/7. Luto, not in the least. That trust that we've built, it enables us to allow each individual their own space to come up with their best work without interference. And what does that speak to? Alignment. So we celebrate individual and team wins big time. Over here on your right is Minoli, Talia, and Rangani. They were the entrants for the Foundational Biodiversity Science Intern Symposium. And our Minoli won the Best Speaker Award. And we do what we can to be together as much as possible, realistically speaking. And because we love food, we eat together whenever we're together. We bond over meat and toasted chicken mayo sandwiches. Those chicken mayo sandwiches are now KZN Herbarium standard, like they're legends. Okay. One challenge that we faced that wasn't so really bad was lockdown, because it only truly impacted our plans to take our sessions to other centers to experience. We, I think, started with the ISP team, which was next door to, well, almost next door to us. And so our plan was now to go to the National Botanical Gardens, the KZN ones. So it only impacted those plans. For us, we just went virtual and continued the work. The actual biggest challenge was resistance. Now, any change is going to be met with resistance because the distance between what you intend versus how it's perceived can be a messy battleground. And for those that remember our initial video submission back in 2021, there was quite an outcry from our own staff to do something regarding clicks. This is Boxer here, just, with like as one of the people that commented. We then had to solve this. We then had a very, very difficult 3 sessions. And what were we doing there? Courageous conversations, just thrashing out these almost impossible topics, bullying, cliques, ostracism, micromanagement, toxic workplace. I'm sure you can imagine if you are here and you have to talk about this, and whether you're a victim of it or you're the one doing it or you're the one accused of doing it, having to speak and having to come to resolutions about this cannot be easy. But we were there as a team and we had to go through it, and it's over 3 sessions. So that's 3 months of just thrashing this out. Now looking for solutions and commitment from staff to self-reflection first, and then effecting a positive change. Fortunately, all of this is a thing of the past now. Team members share, learn, and grow freely. I used to get private follow-up requests of additional info slides, links, etc. after our sessions. Now they happen right there and then. And that to me speaks of the comfortability that people now have with doing the necessary individual work that leads us to working better as a team. So I just want to thank my KZN team for being such awesome swarmers. And thank you to Desiree, Ilza, and the NSCF Hub for the invitation to share our progress. Thank you very much. And that is us. Whether we're attacking manual implementation, whatever task or food, that's us in it right there. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah.
Wow, wow. Thank you, Sunny. Thank you for bringing it to life in such an animated way, and also for sharing all the beautiful things that you are doing and applying, again, the implementation. I think this is really valued. So thanks for ending it off on that note and the effort that you put in. Okay, so that is that's the last speaker. So thank you to each of you for bringing your organizational and your personal journeys into the process through the Transformation Council. And so we want the whole community, to take all that wisdom, and we're going to work with it sort of as we go forward for the day, and take it into the courageous conversations. So that's where we're at. We're not going to do the usual, what people usually do after this kind of sharing, you know, the kind of panel question answer. We're not going to do that, but we're going to ask you to hold all your questions, hold all your comments. There's been quite a lot of comments in the chat, so that's great. And we're going to move now into something completely different but connected. And then we're going to go into the courageous conversation, where we are hoping that you'll take all this knowledge and wisdom that you've gained here and work with it more there. So thank you again to Isabel, Angus, Sanelisiwe, Yashika, and Aisha for that wonderful sharing. Okay, so I'm going to ask Ilza to introduce our next session and our next speaker. So Ilza, over to you.
Thank you, Des. Thank you, Des. Sure, colleagues, that was a beautiful, powerful, beautiful and powerful sharing. Thank you so much. And it is, I'm so excited, colleagues, right now, this moment, to introduce a new colleague. I'm hoping we will become friends. Her name is Nomzamo Mti. And Chanel, if you could maybe just throw up that beautiful slide of Nomzamo's business. So Nomzamo and I met as lawyers, but she practiced as an advocate for, I think, about 6 or 7 or 8 years before deciding that her real calling is to bring more healing to the world. And she trained as a yoga instructor and as a wellness coach. And Nomzamo, all you Durban people, has a studio in Durban, and I'm so excited for making this connection for all our KwaZulu-Natal colleagues, that you have this opportunity to join Nomzamo in her studio. It's called The Toolbox in Durban. And I love her tagline, self-repair for social repair. And what is so amazing about what Nomzamo and her sister are running this studio, and what is so amazing about it is that they are really doing it with this emphasis on social repair, placing wellness in its social context, in its context of intergenerational trauma, and bringing wellness to communities that are not traditionally able to access things like yoga and other body and mindfulness practices. And so, Nomzamo, so welcome. I'm going to hand over to you, and Nomzamo is going to spend the next 30 minutes with us, introducing us to some body practices that we can do where we are in front of our Zoom to ground ourselves when we are dealing with some of these very challenging topics like we've been speaking about in the last hour. So over to you, Nomzamo, and super welcome.
Hello everybody. Can I get a sign? Am I clear? Can you see me? Is Okay, awesome. Okay, hi everybody. As Ilza has said, my name is Nomzamo, and my surname is Mg. I am here as someone who's going to facilitate some talk about well-being, especially from an embodied perspective. I've been practicing in yoga and other aspects of holistic health. And I think what really draws me to yoga as opposed to other modalities is this emphasis on mind, body, and soul, and the fact that they are interconnected. I think indigenous cultures have known for a long time that we can't separate the mind, we can't separate the body, but very recently it's sort of being recognized more by Western medicine. It's been called somatics. So just really working with that understanding of that connection is powerful for healing. I think that, you know, sometimes, especially in academic spaces, professional spaces, high performance spaces, we emphasize our mind and our brain and everything that has to produce. And we sometimes sort of relegate our physical and our emotional wellness. We put it to the side because there's a sense that there's no time for that until you get sick, until you have the burnout, until you reach a situation where you actually realize that, oopsie, all of this brain work was happening because my body was functioning and my emotions were balanced, and that all of this is part of our well-being. And I think that burnout and things like that are much higher on our agenda these days. We all recognize that high levels of stress are a big part of causing illness and a lack of well-being. And unless we've got coping mechanisms and ways in which to take care of ourselves, then we are likely to fall into these lifestyle illnesses. So as Ilza had mentioned, I did start a studio in Durban. I'm now based in Joburg, actually. So yes, so I'm accessible here and my sister's still in Durban. And I think one of the big barriers to wellness and well-being is a sense of that either you have to go somewhere specific to do it and kind of put it off. But what's helped me and how I try to support people is really practical tools that you can integrate into your everyday life. So we're called the Toolbox, and it's really about a toolkit that you can draw on to support yourself to be well. I think I'm going to do a chair yoga practice with you. So everyone has a chair. And as I mentioned, well-being is holistic. So it's what we do with our body. It's the thoughts we think. It's what we're consuming. It's the people we surround ourselves by. It's the environments that we're in. And physical wellness is one slice of lots of different things, but I think it really supports the others. When we're stressed out, you know, I'm hearing so much about teamwork and being able to show up for other people. And I think that when we have healthy coping mechanisms, we're able to show up better for ourselves and also for other people. The work that you're doing, the transformation work, it's not easy. I mean, I know it's one slice of all the different work that you're doing, but we need to be able to have awareness and a level of self-control, self-management, and having a well-being practice really helps us to do that. So I will show you a few movements. If everyone can get comfortable, I'm going to be sitting in a chair like that. So it doesn't have sides. If that's okay, if you can have a chair that doesn't have sides, that's more helpful so that we can sort of twist and move. But if you do have sides on your chair, that's also okay. If you feel comfortable, I won't see you. So please take off your shoes and your socks. It's nice to be also touch the ground and to just feel that sense of rootedness. And it's pretty much going to be open to all levels and all mobilities. I will try to show variations, but hopefully this is something that most people should be able to do. But if something feels uncomfortable, if you feel that you're suddenly having to hold your breath, then please, or your breath becomes very jagged, then please hold back and maybe try a variation. It might not be for you. Okay, and a big part of well-being and wellness is listening. I was hearing a lot about people listening to others and being heard, but I do think that practice starts with listening to yourself. Being able to hear the messages. Our body's communicating with us all the time. And sometimes because of busyness, because of the fullness of our lives, we don't stop and actually hear until something has to shout in the sense of an illness, a disease. But, you know, if we were present to the whispers along the way, then we might not get into some of the trouble that we take our bodies and our emotions into. So your body, your practice, everything I say is a suggestion. But if you know that you've got a prior injury, or if there's something that affects your mobility, then please listen to your own internal guidance system over me. Your voice matters much more than mine. Okay, so if you can come into your seat, if you haven't been already. I need to, just so that you can see my feet. So ideally, we want to get into a position where we can put our feet directly below our knees. So that I'm going to turn to the side. You don't have to, but you want a 90-degree stacking. So if that's the position that you want your feet and your knees to be, okay. And bringing your hands onto your lap. Palms facing down. If you're feeling a little bit scattered and you want to ground, if you feel like you need a bit of energy, you can turn your palms up, resting them gently on your lap. I'd like you to bring a softening into your shoulders, so just giving them a bit of a wriggle. And then we're going to, I'm not leaning on the chair, right? So we're sitting up slightly. So we're doing this so that we can bring a bit of life into the spine. Flexibility is so key with any sort of transformation, with any change that we're working to. And one of the ways in which we encourage flexibility in our body first is by strengthening our spine. So just leaning away from the chair, sitting upright. And you can even lift your chest a little bit. As you lift the chest, we bring a nice opening to the heart center and we extend through the back. And then if you can, draw your navel in towards your spine so that you can just gently contract. So what we're doing here is that if we engage the stomach, then we can support the lower back. A lot of back problems come because we haven't developed our core to support it. So just hold them there, hands on your knees. I invite you now to close your eyes. We're doing this so that we can turn our attention inwards. If you don't feel comfortable, you can keep your eyes blurred and just look out in front of you. Otherwise, we're going to close the eyes, turning our attention inwards. We'll start with softening the body. So I'd like you to loosen your shoulders down away from your ears. We often unnaturally draw them up. Soften the bottom jaw away from the top jaw. Allow the tongue to fall from the roof of your mouth. Bring a softening to the inner thighs. Feel the weight of your seat on the chair. Become aware of gravity, also grounding down the feet. Become aware of your legs, the weight of your legs on the ground. Feel your palms softening into the lap. And just be present to a sense of being weighted, of being grounded, of being rooted down. Now we're going to connect with an upward energy again by lifting up the chest, bringing a bit of extension into the spine. Okay, we're going to start with a breath pattern where you're going to breathe in for a count of 3, and then you're going to breathe out for a count of 3. We're going to breathe in through the nose for a count of 3 and out the mouth for a count of 3. So you're going to form like an invisible straw, like. Okay, so that's our breath out. Okay, so keeping the eyes closed or gently, like a little bit softer, we're going to start breathing in through the nose, 2, 3, out the mouth, 2, 3, in the nose, 2, 3, out the mouth, 2, 3, in the nose, 2, 3, out the mouth, 2, 3. Breathing in a little bit deeper for the last one. Breath in, 2, 3, and breath out, 2, 3. Okay, so we're going to stay with the same breath count. We're now just going to bring in our chin and our neck. So as you breathe in, you're going to tilt the chin up to the ceiling. 2, 3. Chin to chest, breathing out. 2, 3. Breath in. 2, 3. Chin to chest. 2, 3. Inhale. 2, 3. Exhale. 2, 3. Let's do one more round. Chin up. 2, 3. Out the mouth. 2, 3. Okay, we can gently come back to neutral. So what we're doing is we're working with the breath that's always with us, and find by lengthening our breath and being conscious about our breath, it provides an opportunity to quieten the mind a little bit. So it takes a little bit of practice, but our breath is something that's always with us and is one of those tools that we can always engage to support ourselves, to bring more oxygen, to calm down. So we're going to stay with a similar breath pattern, or if that's not feeling comfortable, find a regular breath pattern for you. What we're going to be doing now is we're staying in the neck area where we hold a lot of tension. We're going to start with the breath in, 2, 3. We're going to keep the same pattern. Breathing out, 2, 3. And then really just coming into a full rotation. So you begin with an inhale, chin along the collarbone, moving towards the neck. Then allow the head to fall back, opening through the front of the throat, and then bring the chin over to the other side. So sometimes if it's too tense, if you've had an injury, this position might not feel good. So in yoga, we don't shove or force. If something doesn't feel good, perhaps adjust, find a different way. But if it feels good, please really support yourself with your breath. Notice how much tension you carry. I'd like you to do one more in this direction. And then once you've completed it, allow your head to hang down heavy. We're opening through the back of the neck, keeping the shoulders soft. Let's take it in the other way, starting in with the breath in, tracing the chin, taking it back and around. You'll also notice that it's probably different on a different side. Okay, we've got one more in this direction. Allow the head to hang nice and heavy, and then gently roll the chin back up to neutral. Right, we're going to keep moving into the upper body neck area. So we're going to be working into the shoulders. So what we're doing now is you're going to breathe in, take the chin, the shoulders up towards the ears. So that's your breath in through the nose. And as you breathe out, you're going to sigh the breath out the mouth. Breath in takes the shoulders up towards the ears, fill up with breath. Breath out, let it go. So it can be quite a dramatic sigh. Let's keep going. Breath in, fill up, lift the shoulders up. Breath out, let it go. We'll do about 2 more of those. Inhale, drawing them up. Dramatic sigh, let it go. And then last one, deep breath in, shoulders up towards the ears. Letting it go as we breathe out. Staying with the shoulders, we're going to take the arms out, palms facing outwards. Feel that connection of the feet to the earth, so that's your anchor. And what we're doing now is we're going to breathe in. As we do this, we're extending the arms upwards, if you can, connecting the hands above the heart center, above the head, looking up. And as you breathe out, turn the palms away from each other, chin comes down towards the chest. We're extending through the upper body now. Breath in, lift up. This is a lovely way to greet the day. Breath out, chin to chest, let the arms float down. So the breath out can be out the mouth or through the nose, whatever feels more comfortable. Inhale, let's lift up, pressing into the feet. That gives us a bit more of a lift. Breath out, gently coming down. We're going to do one more, make it your lengthiest extension yet. We're going to touch the ceiling and then breath out, hands come down towards the side of the body. So when our arms are up, we can take in deeper breaths. So this is a nice thing to take advantage of when we're doing upward stretches. Okay, so we worked a bit into the shoulders, we worked into the neck, and now we're going to work into that back. So flexibility starts in the body, and then we can take it into our lives. You can stay facing the front. I'm going to turn so that I can demonstrate. So basically what we're going to be doing is, it's known as a cat-cow in yoga. So it's when you arch and you round your back. So we're doing the same thing. Okay, so what I want to show you is that the hands are going to be on the knees. You're going to lift your chest up and your back is going to arch. Okay, that's a breath in. And when you breathe out, you round the back, chin comes towards the chest. So breath in, we're lifting the chest up. Breath out, we're rounding the back. Okay, so I'm just gonna have a look, see how you guys are doing. Inhale, lifting the chest, rolling the shoulders back. Exhale, rounding the back, shoulders come forward, chin comes down towards the chest. Everyone's looking great. Breath in, you're opening up the heart center. Breath out, you're opening the space between the shoulder blades. We're going to do a few more of those. Let's do 2 more. And then last one, inhale, lift the chest up. Sophia makes us round the shoulders. This is a reminder to stay open, heart open, and exhale, taking it back, rounding between the shoulders. And then we can come back to neutral. Okay, so this is a lovely gift that you can give to your back, just maintaining that mobility. Often people think that yoga and these practices are about fancy, complicated poses, but it's really on a maintenance level about maintaining your average range of motion. So when we sit the whole day, our joints and everything begin to be frozen. So we just need to lubricate and keep things moving. Okay, so it's been all very chilled. We're gonna get the heart rate up a little bit. So what we're doing is we're going for a jog. If it's available to you, I'd like you to just lift your feet up and just gently begin lifting the knees up and starting at steady pace. So we're going to be starting a little bit of a jog. And this is really great to just get a little bit of blood flowing, get a bit of circulation. Lots of problems happen when we don't circulate. Energetically, we stagnate. We also know organizations where there's no movement, that energy of stagnation is a little bit depressing. So we also just want to keep things flowing within our bodies. Okay, we want to speed it up a little bit more. That was a jog. Now we're finding our pace. Perhaps the thighs are communicating with you, listening to the body, responding with a bit of breath. Okay, for the last few, it's now a full-on sprint. Perhaps you can feel your breath changing. You've been sitting for quite a while, get that energy flowing, getting to the finish line. And then you can gently come back. If you didn't hold out on me, if you gave yourself to it, you might have lost a bit of breath. Just a reminder that we can get the heart rate flowing, can get energy moving even from our seat. Okay, last bit of cardiovascular. We're going to go for a swim now. So there's a soundtrack that comes to this movement. I like to think of Dora. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming. So sometimes we're not quite sure where we're going, which way the stream is going to take us. But if we can find our rhythm, you'll probably find that the shoulders are activated a bit here. If you've got previous shoulder injuries or discomfort, please don't do this or adjust the movement. But if you can find your rhythm, you'll also notice the breath is having to change, lungs possibly working a little bit harder. I'm just checking out my gorgeous swimmers here, those that I can see. Okay, those I can't see, I trust. We are swimming this race. Okay, shark is coming. Change of conditions. We've got to go a little bit faster. Okay, staying even and steady with the breath, even though there's a little bit of panic, we can do this. We're beating the shark. It's not going to catch us. Safety, the shore is right there. Fastest that you can go for the last few moments. And then we made it. You can take a breath. Let's take a deep breath in, holding the breath in the body. And then sighing that breath out the mouth. 2 more. Deep breath in through the nose. Breath out. Last one. Deep breath in. And breath out. So I have an interesting habit of not checking the time when I start. So I don't know how much time I have left. Can you give me a sign, maybe, Ilse? How much more time do I have?
I would say another like 5 or so minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, cool. Wonderful. Thanks. Okay, so hopefully got a bit of blood flowing. That's really important for our systems to just keep things circulating, as I mentioned. Okay, so the thing that really takes a knock from our sedentary lifestyle are our hips. So we're going to just do some hip openers. I'd like you to take your right leg and put it onto your left knee. If you start with a different leg, it's okay. We're going to do the same thing on the other side as well. So if that is not available to you, maybe you can straighten the other leg and then you're keeping the knee at a slightly lower point. So yeah, if you're struggling to bring it up, then just straightening the leg, finding a lower point. Okay, one hand on the ankle, another hand on the knee. And I'd like you to lift your chest up. So as we're doing this, we're straightening the back. You might feel a bit of communication happening to the glutes, to the thighs, and then we're going to gently tilt forward. So this is working into that hip glute area. Maybe your hip is gently whispering, maybe it's screaming. Just taking the time to be present to whatever you're feeling. We're working deeply into this area, and we want to just support ourselves with breath. We can take 2 more breaths here. Deep breath in, breath out. If this is feeling easy and you want to challenge yourself, you can extend the arms forward as we do the last breath, taking a deep breath in and then breath out. We rise up and release the hands down. Okay. Maybe you need to shake out the right leg. I'm going to do the other side now. And there's often a difference in the body, right? It's not symmetrical. You carry your bag on the one side, carry your child on the one side. So it's quite normal to feel this asymmetry. And so that's part of doing things on both sides. We're just going to balance things out. Okay, so let's lift up the chest once more, flattening the back, engaging the core to support the back. And then we're going to gently tilt forward. Okay, so just being present to where you feel the sensations. So often in our lives, we're numbing out. And this is just a process and a time to be with. Okay, let's take 2 breaths. Deep breath in through the nose. Breath out the mouth. Deep breath in through the nose. Breath out the mouth. Last one, if you'd like to, hands extending up. Or if you're good where you are, standing there, staying there, we'll take 1 more deep breath in. Rising up as we breathe out, and then gently bringing the leg down, hands onto the knees. Okay, so if you can just relax now in your seat. We generally end our classes, our sessions, with a moment of relaxation that allows your body to just recalibrate and make sense of what's happened. It's also a nice reminder that so often in our lives we just rush from one thing to another, And it's nice to just give the one thing you've done before a chance to settle before you go into the next. So finding a comfortable position, closing your eyes or blurring them, just allowing the body to settle into itself, once more connecting with that downward force of gravity. I like to end my classes with a moment of gratitude. So just maybe thinking of one thing that you are grateful to your body for in this moment. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to guide you in this session. I'm hoping that you have a beautiful conference going forward. Thank you for taking this little journey with me, and hopefully look forward to connecting in future. Thank you, everybody. Does anyone have any questions? Anything, any part they discovered they're not sure if it's supposed to be there? Is it okay?
Thank you so much, Nomzamo. Thank you so much.
My-
Shanti to you. Peace. And thank you for that beautiful, authentic and fun and beautiful practice. Thank you so, so much.
No, my pleasure.
We'll share Nomzamo's details. She does online Zoom fatigue sessions. She's available to be a wellness coach. She's absolutely all round, absolutely amazing human being. So thank you so, so much, Nomzamo.
Thank you, Ilse. Bye, everybody.
Colleagues, so we're a little bit behind time. We're going to take our tea break now, and then when we come back, Chanel, I think we'll come back and we'll start with our TED Talk when we come back, and we'll just take a little bit of a shorter time in our breakaway groups. So the rhythm of the day is to have started with our check-in, to have moved into our Transformation Council, to have done some wellness to ground us and to help integrate what came out of the Transformation Council. Now we're going to go back into some challenging work around the idea of psychological safety, and then we're going to end the day off with another wellness session. And we wanted to role model the possibility of threading these wellness sessions into your day. And they don't even have to be half an hour, they can be 5 minutes threaded into your day. So enjoy your tea break now. Colleagues, we're going into our next session with the same theme. We know where we've come from. We know where we need to be going towards these assessments and towards the implementation of the manual. We know where we currently are. We saw that in the videos. We know what we're currently busy doing with. We shared what we're currently busy with. We shared our work, our science, what we're aspiring to as young leaders. And today we're beginning to ask this question: what is it that will get us to where we need to go as a flock? And we have spoken about the challenges and the joys and the absolute power of transformation this morning. And Nomzamo has helped us ground us in our bodies, realizing that without repairing ourselves, we can't bring any healing to the world in which we are. Without taking care of ourselves, we can't take care of our collections. Without taking care of ourselves, we can't take care of each other and of our institutions, who are often also stressful, stressed, and unwell. And one of the antidotes to that is this idea of psychological safety, something that makes it possible for us to thrive as a flock, to move together as a flock towards our common purpose, and to stay close and connected to our colleagues without rudely bumping into them with our lack of awareness around ourselves and around the principles of transformation we've shared this morning so far. So we're going to spend 10 minutes watching a TED Talk, and after that, Chanel will take us, after that Chanel, I'm wondering if we not maybe skip the slides. No, we need to just touch on the courageous conversation slide. So we're going to watch the TED Talk, then we're going to very quickly touch on about 2 or 3 slides, and then we're going to go into smaller groups, and we'll have a slightly shorter amount of time. We'll probably have about 35 minutes or so to reflect on the TED Talk and on what we can do in our institutions to create more of a learning environment in our institutions.
A nurse on the night shift in a busy urban hospital notices that the dosage for a particular patient seems a bit high. Fleetingly, she considers calling the doctor at home to check the order. Just as fleetingly, she recalls his disparaging comments about her abilities last time she called him at home. All but certain the dose is in fact fine. The patient is, after all, on an experimental protocol which justifies the high dose. She heads for the cart, gets the med, and goes toward the patient's bed. Quite far from the urban hospital, a young pilot in a military training flight notices that his senior officer might have made a crucial misjudgment. He lets the moment go by. Far from both of those stories, a senior executive who has recently been hired by a very successful consumer products company to join the top management team has grave reservations about a planned takeover. New to the team, feeling like an outsider, everyone else is so enthusiastic about the plan, he doesn't say anything. These are 3 episodes of workplace silence when voice was necessary. Voice would have been helpful. Now, you may think, if I were in their shoes, I wouldn't do that. Or you may be aware, as I am, of just how often this happens in the modern workplace. So, I've been fascinated by this problem for a long time. Why does this happen? It's quite simple, actually. It turns out that no one wakes up in the morning and jumps out of bed because they can't wait to get to work today to look ignorant, incompetent, intrusive, or negative, right? No, on average, we'd prefer to look smart and helpful and, positive and helpful. So the good news about all this is that it's very easy to manage, right? Don't want to look ignorant? Don't ask questions. Don't want to look incompetent? Don't admit weakness or mistake. Don't want to look intrusive? Don't offer ideas. And if you don't want to look negative, by all means, don't criticize the status quo. Okay. Now, this strategy, the good news about this very successful strategy is that it works for self-protection. The psychologists call this impression management. And there's a great deal of evidence that we're quite good at it. We learn how to do this sometime in grade school. By the time we're working adults, it's all but second nature. Have you ever had a question and you look around and you don't ask it? No one else seems to be asking. Maybe you're supposed to know. You think, I'll figure it out later, right? So why does this matter? It matters because every one of these moments, every time we withhold, we rob ourselves and our colleagues of small moments of learning. And we don't innovate. We don't come up with new ideas. We don't. We are so busy, unconsciously for the most part, managing impressions that we don't contribute to creating a better organization. The nurses don't call. The pilot doesn't speak up. The executive doesn't say anything. So the good news is that not every workplace is, in fact, this way. There are some workplaces where people absolutely wake up in the morning, if not eager, at least willing and ready to take the interpersonal risks of learning. I call these special workplaces ones that have psychological safety. Now, I'll define psychological safety as a belief that it's absolutely okay, in fact, it's expected, to speak up with concerns, with questions, with ideas, with mistakes. And I got into this. I got interested in this actually quite by accident. Let me tell you how it happened. I joined a team of mostly physicians and nurses, and the job of that team was to find out, to assess, they hoped conclusively, what the actual rate of medication errors was in, let's say, some modern tertiary care hospitals. So their job was to set out to collect data on drug errors, human-related drug errors. My little part was very simple. I was going to ask the question and answer the question of, do better teams, better hospital patient care teams, make fewer mistakes? I used a standard team survey measure to assess the team effectiveness, and trained nurse investigators visited a number of units in 2 hospitals every couple of days for 6 months. These were the data that they came up with. Now, these are adverse drug events, errors, just call them medication errors, that were deemed to be based on human error, expressed in terms of errors per 1,000 patient days. Now, here's where the story gets a little weird. I got the data, I waited patiently, I got the data on the teams, I got the data on the errors, and I ran my analyses. And what did I find? The results were exactly the opposite of what I had expected. It appeared that better teams were making more mistakes, not fewer. Now, from the point of view of a young researcher wanting to publish a paper, this was a real problem. Never mind the other problems, right? And so this was a problem. No, this was a puzzle. So I sat down to think, why else might? I thought about the need for coordination between physicians and nurses. I thought about the need for teamwork on the fly, for speaking up, for double checking. And I thought maybe, in a kind of blinding flash of the obvious, I thought maybe the better teams aren't making more mistakes. Maybe they're more willing to discuss them. What if the better teams have a climate of openness that allows them to report and even get to the bottom of these things? Now, having that insight was a far cry from proving it. So what did I do? I sent out a young research assistant to study these units very carefully. He had to have no preconceptions. He didn't know the error rates. He didn't know how they scored on the team survey. He didn't even know my hypothesis. And I said, what do you learn? And you know what he found? He found that these units, these 8 units, were wildly different in terms of whether they were willing and able and did, in fact, talk about errors. Some of them were actually actively talking about them all the time and in the process of trying together to work together to find new ways of reducing them. I called this, much later, I called this psychological safety. Now, you might want to know, what was the sorting rule in this chart? It looked at first like I was trying to get it from highest error rate to lowest, and I just am not very good at math and got mixed up in the middle. No. These are sorted by the research assistant's ratings of the openness of the climate. As you can see, the correlation is very high indeed. Okay, so how do you build it? What do you do? If you're a leader and you say, wow, I want to have psychological safety in my workplace, let me just suggest 3 simple things you can do so that that nurse does make the call. The pilot does speak up. The executive even reveals his concern about the takeover. First, frame the work as a learning problem, not an execution problem. Recognize, make explicit that there is enormous uncertainty ahead and enormous interdependence. Given those 2 things, we've never been here before. We can't know what will happen. We've got to have everybody's brains and voices in the game. That creates the rationale for speaking up. Second, acknowledge your own fallibility, right? You know you're fallible. Say simple things like, I may miss something. I need to hear from you. This goes, by the way, for subordinates and colleagues, peers alike. That creates more safety for speaking up. And third, model curiosity. Ask a lot of questions. That actually creates a necessity for voice. And so these 3 simple things can go a long way toward creating the kind of workplace where we can avoid the catastrophes you saw coming in those 3 opening vignettes. Now, at this point in describing and teaching about these things, most managers I talk to start to get a little nervous, right? They say, I get it. I understand how this could really help people learn. I understand, and I want to hear about errors. But are you saying I have to dial back a little on excellence? Is it no longer possible to hold people accountable for great results, to hold their feet close to the fire? And I say no. In fact, I don't think it's a trade-off. I think it's 2 separate dimensions, right? 2 dimensions that you have to think about. In fact, when I'm talking about psychological safety, I'm essentially talking about letting up on the brakes, right? I'm not talking about the gas. I'm not talking about motivation. There's a lot out there on motivation, and it's really important, and it's important to understand it. But I'm talking about it's equally important to free people up to really engage and not be afraid of each other. So if you don't do either, by the way, that's the apathy zone, and that's quite sad. So let's move on. If you only do psychological safety, yes, well, it's possible. You're creating a comfort zone, leaving money on the table, right? But this is the one I'm more worried about, and I wish more managers were worried about it too, right? If you're only talking about people's accountability for excellence and not making sure they're not afraid to talk to each other, then they're in the anxiety zone. This is where the nurse was. This is where that young pilot was. Even the senior executive was in this place, and that's a very dangerous place to be. So, of course, where do I want you to be? I want you to be high, in the learning zone. And let me just say, in case it wasn't clear yet, that this is also one and the same as the high performance zone as long as there's uncertainty and interdependence. If you have no uncertainty and no interdependence, it's fine. You don't need psychological safety, really. It's fun to have, but not necessary. But if you have both uncertainty and interdependence, it's absolutely vital that you have psychological safety. So the workplace out there, the complexity, the interdependence, it's not going to go away anytime soon. We need people to bring their absolute full selves to the challenging jobs ahead. And I hope you will help me create those kinds of workplaces so that they can learn and become their full and most contributing selves. Thank you.
I don't know how many times I've seen that, Des, but every time I sort of hang on to every word of that TED Talk. We hope you found that interesting, colleagues. So, Chanel, if you don't mind screen sharing, just to recap 2 or 3 principles shared in that TED Talk before we go to our small groups. So psychological safety is the belief that we will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with our ideas, our questions, concerns, or mistakes. Because of course, otherwise we will not be able to learn. So the next slide, I think, just recaps the quadrants, those 4 quadrants. Oh, first of all, in some of the research that's been done about psychological safety, what emerged was that before we even talking about being safe to learn, safe to contribute, or safe to challenge the status quo, we need to feel included. So the whole idea of an inclusive environment is a precondition or a prerequisite for psychological safety. It's only once we feel included in the team, that we absolutely belong to the team, that we are valued as a member of a team, then we need to also have the safety to learn, to contribute, and to challenge the status quo. So in that way, for us, psychological safety is directly related to the transformation conversation. The next slide just recaps the 4 quadrants. So you might recall Amy Edmondson speaking about psychological safety on the one side and accountability or performance standards on the other axis. And if we are scoring low on psychological safety or low on accountability, those are workplaces where people are not fully invested, not much is happening, people have checked out. I don't know if you guys have heard this term, quiet quitting. Have you heard of this term that has emerged now post the pandemic, where people realize they've been giving their all to work and that there's not a reciprocal environment, it's costing them too much? If you're quietly quitting, you're in the apathy zone. As Amy said, the comfort zone, if you're high on psychological safety, but you're very low on accountability, if we talk about the implementation of the manual, if we say, okay, you've got the next 20 years to implement this manual, let's really create very beautiful, inclusive, comfortable work environments, and we focus on the high psychological safety, but with no accountability, we're in a comfort zone. And when we're in a comfort zone, we are not living into our full potential. We are not innovating. We are not contributing and responding to the challenges our world is presenting to us. But remember the one quadrant she said she was most concerned about. Do you remember? She said the one that I'm most worried about, the one where the nurse was, where the pilot was, and where the young executive was, is where they had very low psychological safety. They did not feel safe to raise their concerns. And there was high pressure on them to deliver and to perform and to do their task. And then we are creating, in the anxiety zone, I think she referred to the disasters that become possible in the anxiety zone. Our collections can deteriorate, data can get lost. You can just imagine all the other dangers, fire, risk, floods, difficult interpersonal relationships. You can just imagine everything that can go wrong in the anxiety zone, and it will not result in us living into our fully into our NSCF vision. Where we want to be is in the learning zone, where we both have high psychological safety, but we also feel accountable to each other. A reminder, we shared this slide on Tuesday when we started, but just a reminder that being psychologically safe is where you're able to give and receive feedback. You can raise issues and concerns. You can disagree with each other. You can admit your errors. You can freely offer solutions to problems. You can ask really difficult, challenging questions. And we've had such beautiful sharing of workplaces where psychological safety really has been already created. We've got best practice living examples in our NSCF community already, which is so heartwarming. So remember how to create psychological safety. Edmondson suggests that there are 3 things that is really important. The one is to frame the task that we're busy with as a learning journey. And so that is the absolute foundational reason why we want to suggest that we frame the assessments as a learning journey, so that we do not generate the anxiety, but so that we can stay in that learning space, that we acknowledge our own vulnerability and fallibility, and that we're asking that of directors and senior leaders and all the way to wherever you find yourself in the organization without it costing you in any way. And that we all develop the habit, cultivate the habit of asking questions, modeling curiosity and asking questions all the time. I think that brings us to our theme for our Courageous Conversations, Chanel. Des, do you want to just touch on the principles of Courageous Conversations as we go into our small groups?
So I think some of you are familiar with this. We've used it in many of our spaces, and it comes from the work of Glenn Singleton, who is an African-American educator. He's written quite a lot about it. There are some videos online as well about him sharing how he has used this approach. So we use it for all kinds of conversations. So the first principle is about staying engaged. And by that, we mean morally, emotionally, intellectually, stay in the conversation, be present, but also manage your own silence and defiance if you feel that coming up. And then to experience discomfort that it does arise when we start to share stories. It does allow us to then examine our own beliefs, values, and ultimately behaviors. And so that is a space that we say, be okay with it, allow it. And then speaking your truth, of course, it goes without saying that we need to be honest. And sometimes being honest sounds angry or ignorant or offending, and that's okay. We need to own our experiences, so not to try to temper how we bring what we need to bring. And then the last one is expect and accept non-closure. And we say that most of these conversations, they open up more things. So, sometimes the solutions are in the experience of the conversation itself, but that often it opens up another round of needing to engage. And so some people might complain that, we're not getting anywhere, or, you know, and we're saying that's part of the process. So those are the 4 principles. Okay, thanks, Ilse.
Thanks, Des. And then just a reminder as we go into our conversations. So we have 8 groups, and in each group there will be a host. The host is not a formal facilitator. They are there to welcome you and to hold the space. Just to reassure you that these conversations will be confidential, that there's no recording happening in the small groups, that there won't be any report backs or feedbacks, that it's an opportunity for us to practice these 4 agreements, to practice what it feels like to be together authentically with difficult challenges. It's an opportunity to practice the active listening that we spoke about so much this morning. And it's an opportunity to practice and see what it feels like if we're able to create a psychologically safe space, even if we're just going to be together for about 30 or 35 minutes. Can we create a space where we feel psychologically safe to speak our truth? Can we be with our discomfort? Can we accept the fact that we're not going to get to any point of closure, but can we stay engaged for the long run? Can we stay engaged in these difficult conversations? So the theme for the question that we'll be asking in our Courageous Conversations for the next slide, thank you, Des. I'm sure you've guessed it. What is still standing in the way? What is still standing in the way of us creating more of a learning zone in, and not just in, but also among our institutions? What is still standing in our way? How can we create more of a learning environment? How can we make sure we find ourselves in the learning zone within our institutions, as has been role modeled by some institutions already? And then also among institutions. We also find among institutions, often we revert back to not being able to admit our mistakes, to not being able to admit the state of our collections, to not being able to ask for help from each other. So it's not just within our institutions, but also among our institutions. So that is the key question for our breakaway groups. What is still standing in the way of us creating a learning zone in and among our institutions? I'm just doing a time check here. It is 22:11. We have until 12:15, so we will just have just over half an hour. It is too short, colleagues. Please, we admit it's too short. It's too short, but at least let's just encounter each other and have a taste. And when we come back, we'll have another experience of a wellness session before we close at 1 o'clock. Thanks, Chanel. Enjoy the conversation, colleagues. I wish for you that each one experiences a tiny little bit of discomfort. Sanelisi has just sent us greetings from Alison Reuters, which is so lovely, so bittersweet that she's not with us, and we hope that she's making a very powerful contribution. And we know she will be making a powerful contribution wherever she might find herself. Yes, thank you, colleagues. We hope that you had a generative time in your groups, and we remind you of the principle of non-closure, that we can't achieve closure on these issues, but if we were able to engage and show up to some of the difficulties and challenges, the brokenness of our world, the brokenness of our politics, the brokenness of our economic system, and in some instances, the brokenness of our people and our leaders. If we can show up to that together, who knows what becomes possible? Who knows what becomes possible? So, colleagues, we wanted to offer you some practices that will support you in your journey. This morning, we shared with Nomzamo some embodied practices, and it's my pleasure and joy to introduce to you again Jenny Canal, You might remember Jenny from last year. She did some mindfulness-based practices with us last year. It was one of the parallel groups, one of the breakaway groups, and we got a request this year that please, people wanted more of Jenny, and people who didn't have an opportunity to be in Jenny's group last year felt they'd missed out. So we're very happy to welcome Jenny back. Jenny is part of a group called Mindfulness Africa, and she also runs her own mindfulness consultancy and mindfulness work. And what I love about Jenny, in the same way of what I love about Nomzamo, is that most of Jenny's work is community-based. It is with disadvantaged communities. It is teaching mindfulness at schools, and it is grounding it in our liberatory practice. Jenny also grounds her mindfulness practice in our struggle that we've all been in together, and inspired very much by some of Nelson Mandela's own words around the use of mindfulness, particularly when we find ourselves in triggering situations, like, for example, some of the themes we're sure that emerged for you during your conversations on psychological safety. So thank you so much to be here with us again, Jenny, and you've got half an hour, and then we will just have a small activity to close, a 10-minute activity that we will close with before 1 o'clock today. Over to you, Jenny.
Thanks so much, Ilse. I hope you can hear me. Oh my gosh, my face has come on, so I've got a big face on here.
Clearly. No, you've got a beautiful face, a beautiful face.
So it's wonderful to be here again, and I was part of one of the conversations, just listening in, and yeah, just feeling into how people are feeling within their workspace, within themselves. It's such a complex issue around psychological safety, and so, you know, my sense of it and what I want to offer here today is for us to recognize and to take accountability for our own psychological safety, because it has to start with us first. You know how it is. You want to put on literally that oxygen mask first. If you are not feeling psychologically safe, that will impact everyone around you. And you know that as a parent or a teacher or a communicator or as a friend, that you've got to be feeling psychologically safe. So what I'm going to do, and I know that, you know, so just think about the thoughts that you've had during your group. And of course, there's more questions, and that's wonderful, than answers, you know, the introspection. Think about what's come up for you. And what I'm going to ask you to do now is to write in the chat. So I want you to think around when you feel unsafe, when you feel threatened, right? What feeling arises? And what are the bodily sensations? So just due to confidentiality and so forth, feel free to just write down what are all the bodily sensations. So, you know, it could be, you know, you also just mentioned triggers. So let's just say one of your triggers is, you know, the kid or the hubby forgot to put, or has still not put that trash bag outside. And it happens every week, and you feel angry, whatever it is, you are now triggered. What does that feel like in your body? Because it's so important that we become mindful. There we go. Of what are the bodily reactions? So we've got pressure on the chest. Anyone and everyone. We've got tears, hair stands on end. Absolutely, sweating, more tears. Frustration, spiraling minds, the mind goes all over the place. Absolutely, clenched jaws, there's a lot of tension, very shallow breathing, absolute sense of nausea. Absolutely, all of this makes sense, right? So when we are feeling, you know, not safe, heartbeats faster, these are the you know, our body responds. Our body lets us know, and that is absolutely wonderful. But what do we do with it? Yeah. What do we do with it? Because the responsibility is on us. All right. Tummy bloats immediately. Yo, I walk around with a bloated tummy most of the time. So just to say, I do this not because I'm good at it, because I need it and I have to practice it. So there's no perfection here. It's a sense of just progress and being human and being fallible and making mistakes and trying over and over again. My defense senses are heightened, absolutely. And we're going to get to the senses. Now let's try the opposite. The point is we are all resilient. We are already all itchy skull, absolutely. So let's get to the second question. We are all able to, as human beings, to get through things because things are always moving and changing. We move and change. Nothing is stagnant. We overcome hurdles. We are naturally resilient. So I want you to think of, even if it's just one incident, where you've overcome adversity, right? Where you've overcome fear, where you've become psychologically safe. Okay? So any incident in your lifetime where you've overcome a difficulty, all right? And what I want you to think about are what helped. Again, becoming mindful. What helps you? Okay? And notice who are the people? What are the things? What are the activities? What helps you to literally calm down, to literally regulate yourself, to literally feel better, whatever you want to call it, literally become safe again. And we do this daily. So just take that time to notice, right? We've got that. Talking to oneself, right? There's prayer, a sense of courage. What do? Who are the people? What are the activities? A short walk, deep breathing, slowing down, ignore a cry. Yes. Speak to friends. Right. Right. So we all have our unique ways of doing things. We can. And what do they all? I want you to think about what everyone's saying. Listen to music, take a walk, all of these things. What do they all have in common? Movies. So, you know, we go to movies, or we listen to the voice of a friend. We go into a spacious nature walk. We watch a comedy. We laugh. You know. What is the common thing here? Because that is so relevant for us to understand our nervous system. Because when we understand our nervous system, we can then become mindful, not only of when we feel unsafe, but how to then become safe within ourselves, right? And I'm just going to see if anyone wants to say intention, talk to myself. Anyone want to know what are all those practices have in common? Quietness does help, but what do they all have in common? What part of us in terms of our human body, our humanity, is the same? What is helpful? So I'm going to, can you all still hear me? Hilda? Right? So I'm going to give you a little hint. It's to do with the sensations. Okay? Our nervous system regulates through sensations. So if I calm my voice down, you're hearing a calm voice, you're seeing something that's pleasant, you smell something that's pleasant, there's touch, you know, you have a voice of a companion. Everything that is related to sensations is going to calm your nervous system. And that's so important, so you can see what you do that helps you, right? And the wonderful thing is just to become mindful of what is helpful to you to be able to respond, right? To respond to yourself first, because we have to respond to ourselves first, because we realize, okay, I'm triggered, I'm feeling unsafe. How do I become safe again? Right? So you know how to do this. So what I want to do is to speak just for a few minutes on understanding our nervous system a little bit more, so that you can see how to deepen this, what you already know and what you're already doing, because you already got this capacity a little bit more, and just some potential skills. Because what I did here in that class is, how do we do this? You know, how do we do this? Yes, from the jogging, and that's very helpful. I see that. So let me just give you a very short rundown on the brain and the nervous system and how it works. And this is the wonderful thing, because we've all got our unique way, but we all actually have a common nervous system, right? And that works in a similar way. So we've got two pathways. The one pathway is called the sympathetic nervous system. And this is, what we also know as the threat system. And it's sympathetic because it actually takes care of you. It's there to help you deal with threats, right? The only emotions you experience when you feel threatened is fear, anxiety, disgust, right? And your reactions are flight. You've all heard it: flight, fright, freeze, fawn, or faint, the 5 Fs. It keeps growing. So think about how when you're scared, you appease someone. Yes, 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 that's fawning. Or you run away, or you hide, or you freeze, or you get angry and you fight. So what happens is that only one part of the brain starts to work, and that part is related to the limbic system. And it switches every other part of the brain off because it's got to give energy and oxygen to your body to run or to fight, to actually process the threat. Okay, and that threat, the brain doesn't, this is so important, doesn't distinguish whether the threat is internal or external. That's why you can have a memory and your breathing starts and you get very anxious, because the brain doesn't distinguish so much internal and the external. That's why when you think of your favorite meal for about 2 or 3 minutes, you start to salivate. You think of a loved one, you think of prayer, it starts to have that physiological impact, right? So we already know this. All right, so that's our accelerator, and it releases, of course, the cortisol and adrenaline to get us going, right? Very needed, right? As Nomzamo was doing at one point, getting our energy going, and we do exercise, it raises up that accelerator, and we release cortisol and having cortisol in our body is not necessarily bad. It's when we have too much of it that we have a big problem. So now let's think of the other pathway. We've got this one, which is our threat, our sympathetic, which is there to help us, and we've just got to listen to it, become a bit more mindful of what's going on in our own bodies, listen to our bodies. And then there's the parasympathetic, right? Think of the parachute. Helping us calm down. The decelerator, what does that do? Helps us to rest, to digest, to be able to actually bring the 3 parts, we call it the triune brain, the 3 parts of the brain together, so that we're not operating anymore just on fear, but the rest of the brain, the prefrontal cortex and the cortex is attached, and all 3 are operating. And when that happens, you literally can then become mindful, insightful, reflective, get attention, have focus, have self-restraint, be able to respond instead of react. Well, have empathy, have imagination, have creativity. Without it, when you're on threat mode, you can't do that. Now, there's a lovely switch in between, and of course, this is all the good the feel-good hormones, right? This releases the serotonin, which lifts our mood. This releases the endorphins, right? Which are natural pain releases that are stronger than morphine. You know that feeling your best friend walks in and you've forgotten the toothache because you've released literally the chemistry in your brain through that relationship. It's stronger than morphine. We can't make this stuff up in a chemistry lab. And of course, oxytocin, the bonding that happens through the collaboration, through trust, right? When we have the trust, and that's really at the core of psychological safety. When we've got trust and we've got safety within ourselves, when we've got safety with others, we have that trust, right? Within and outside of us. And with that trust comes mutual cooperation, collaboration, and we feel safe psychologically, and we are social beings, so we do fear being excluded. One of the biggest fears is, for instance, public speaking, because we think that we're going to be judged, right? And we can actually become frozen. Our brain stops. We don't know what we're going to say anymore and what have you. This is something, it's one of the things that are experienced as human beings, simply because we are social beings and we are interdependent and we are interconnected. Right, so our decelerator, that is so important to know how to impact that decelerator. Now, what I want to ask you is this: we've got a switch right? Literally a switch we can turn on, right? Between our threat system and our calming system. How do we turn on that switch, right? And I'm going to give you a clue. We've already spoken about the fact that it's related to sensations, right? And also the fact that when our threat system is on, when we're feeling psychologically unsafe, what happens is that part of the brain, this is so important to know, is pre-verbal. So I'm going to ask you now, has anyone ever said to you, relax, chill out, calm down? Has it ever worked? Of course not. It usually makes the whole situation worse, right? Because the part of your brain that's active now is pre-verbal. So you know a hug is going to help, or whatever you do that you know makes you feel safe. It's through the senses, right? It's through the senses. So the big question now becomes, when you're feeling psychologically unsafe, you know you're triggered, you're mindful of it, but you can't go out and take a walk. You can't go to the movies, your best friend's not around, you're not in nature. And in that moment, you've got to actually regulate your nervous system. And what I mean about regulating our nervous system is putting our foot on the, yes, Chanel, definitely you're a student. Well done. You gave the answer before I gave the question, which is wonderful. So the question is, how do we put our foot on, put that switch on? How do we put our foot on the decelerator, right? What is the most effective way, the fastest way to become psychologically safe within ourselves? So we know that all our senses work, and that is quite unique to us. But what is the most effective and fastest way to do that? And as Chanel said, it's through the breath. Now I want you to think of why. Why would that be the case? Why? We've got all these senses. Why does the brain and the nervous system listen more to breathing as a sensation than to anything else? Why? So Ilse, I love that look of yours. You've just like had this, wat gaan aan, sê die kraan. So there's anybody, because I can only see 4 people, so I'm going to have to pick on you. Right? Someone said oxygen, brilliant. But so why? Let's if anyone wants to put that on chat, this is really helpful for all of us, because so I'm going to guide you on balance. Absolutely. Right? Why does the brain and the nervous system listen more to the sensations of breathing than anything else? Right? Because you can take yourself on holiday, you can be in the best place. Sensations are fantastic. You're smelling the flowers, the ocean, you're feeling the heat. This is perfect. Tell us already. So Ilse, how long can we survive? Have you ever watched Survivor? My husband watches that. How long does it take us? How long do we live without food? Anyone? This is going to get us all to that point. Food. Yo. Okay, from what I've seen of Survivor, around 20 to 30 days. On average, okay? You can live without food. Right. Think about water. How long can we live without water? All those survival fanatics. Yes, definitely less. We made up a lot of water, but how long? Almost there. Around 3 days, right? Around 3 days. Now, how long can we live without oxygen? How long can you hold your breath for? Right, generally it's around 3 minutes, right? So that's what the brain knows. It prioritizes, right, your rate of breathing over everything else. That's what's going to regulate your nervous system. There's a hotline, because we need oxygen more than we need anything else. We've got to get enough oxygen to every single cell in order to be regulated, in order to have psychological safety. So I'm going to have more fun with you, Ilse. I hope you're prepared. And what we're going to do is we are going to just find out right now how many breaths a minute we're breathing. So I'm going to ask you very nicely, try not to control your breath. You breathe naturally. Your heartbeat breathes normally. You don't have to do anything about it. So have a nice stretch, right? And I'm going to put a timer on, and I'm just going to say start and stop for a minute. And then all I want you to do is just notice, just however you're breathing now. Every time you breathe in and out, just count 1, 2, 3, 4. Just count. So all we're going to do is count for a minute, and then we're going to really talk about the impact of what this means, right? So there's no right or wrong. This is just a reflection of what's going on in our nervous system. It's a great way for us to know what's going on in our nervous system. That's why I'm asking you not to try to manipulate it in any way. All right. Okay, Terence, welcome. Aliens are very welcome here. All right. So I'm going to put my timer on. All right. And I'd like you to start counting from now. And you can end off. And what I'd love you to do is, and you just can have, even if it doesn't have to be perfect, just an idea of what it was. So if everyone can just write down, I'm going to do the same, what that was like, how many breaths a minute. Okay. And we see all of that coming in. 97, we'd have to really rush you to the ER. I kid you not, I ran this session for doctors the other day, and they said, yeah, yep, that's the first thing they look at. How many breaths per minute? Right. So, you know, the question really relates to how does this impact us? Well, our breaths per minute, how does this reflect our sense of safety or our sense of having a regulated nervous system? So when we, for instance, are doing exercise, of course, we're going to have a higher breath rate. You know, when we calm down, we're going to have a lower breath rate. But it's important to know that if you're breathing over 10 breaths a minute, you've got your foot on the accelerator. All right. So this is so important to know. Everything's changed. We've got the 4th and 5th technological revolution. We've got everything that's, you know, we're vulnerable, all of these changes. What we don't talk about is the fast pace, because our nervous system hasn't adapted to that fast pace. So generally we're breathing very, very fast. So don't worry if your scores are high. Most people breathe between 15 to 30, up to 40 breaths a minute. Right? That means your foot's on the accelerator. When your foot's on the accelerator, you're literally releasing low doses of cortisol into your body the entire time. And what that means is that cortisol gets into your arteries, it causes plaque, it causes inflammation, and of course, it also stays in the fascia of the muscles. That's why someone was saying running, jogging, you know, even the movement that Nozama was talking about is so important right? Because we need to release the cortisol from our bodies. Crying releases the cortisol from our bodies. In fact, it reminds me of a book called Why Zebras Don't Have Ulcers. Because after, after an attack, they shake it off and they go back to grazing, right? So how do we shake it off, and how do we put on that switch and become psychologically safe? And the fastest way of doing it, do it in your own way when you have the space and time, but the fastest way is, and most effective way to regulate your nervous system, is lowering your breath down below 10 breaths a minute. So what I want to teach you today to end off is a way to do that. And I'd love to experiment a little bit with you first. It's called coherent breathing or resonant breathing. And you can look at the work of George Eliot. And the main thing here is just to know that a lot of emphasis was given, especially training around doctors, and during COVID. And what we found with coherent breathing is that they increased lung capacity by 600%, right? It was incredible. And it really helped to regulate all the stress, all the, what we went through. So they taught this to people a lot, and it's actually quite easy to do. And the idea is to start noticing your breathing, start slowing it down, do it in your own time, in your own way, and then let it become part of a lifestyle. So in 1920s, we did breathe lower than 10 breaths a minute. And optimally, our best breath is, our sweet spot is 5 breaths a minute. It's hard to get to, so I can just tell you as a practitioner, it's hard to do. So please note, this isn't something we're just going to get right, but it is actually something we can practice. Remember what neuroscience teaches us, or growth mindsets teach us, is that what we practice, we become, right? So if we regularly practice slow breathing, it really is very, very helpful. So the way to do it is to breathe in through the nostrils, breathe out through the nostrils. If, of course, you've got you're congested like me, or you've got hay fever, or whatever, breathe out through your mouth. There's no real right or wrong way. And all we're going to do is slow the breathing in and slow the breathing out. And what's unique about this breath is that the electrical charges within our brain, our heart, and our lungs become synchronized. So what we want to do is we want to explore this and then feel the synchronicity, because your brain waves synchronize with your heartbeat, synchronize with your lung breath rate. So it's absolutely extraordinarily beneficial. And if you can do that and even add, once you get used to it, and even add, like as Nozamo was showing, even some movement, any movement that feels good for you in the moment, that you're including the body sensations as well. It's absolutely fantastic for you. So let's try this for a minute. Chanel, I know, had the answers already. And she's also got the coherent breathing, and I've sent it to Ilse. So if anyone wants to, then it's a chime. So what's nice is you don't have to sit there and count your breaths. That would drive anyone insane. So it's just a chime that goes up as you breathe in and goes down as you breathe out. But I'll guide us through it. So Chanel, if you don't mind playing that, what I'm going to ask everyone to do right now is actually to have a stretch, and let's see how this impacts us, and give it a go. And just remember, we're not going to try and be perfect. We're just going to try and see how if we can slow ourselves down to 5 breaths a minute, and give Chanel a chance to get us to play that recording for us. Chanel, how are you doing there, love? Right. Okay, so let's start now, and breathing in, gently breathing out, very gently breathing in, breathing out. Don't hold your breath in No holding out. Gently breathing in and out. The last one, breathing in and out. Thank you, Chanel. So that's just 1 minute, 5 breaths. So before, I'd love us to have a chance to have at least 1 more minute trying that out, but I'd love some questions around it as you have a chance here to just feel into it. Any difficulties, because that's most important for us to discuss and have an opportunity to look at. What are the difficulties that we're experiencing as we breathe? And feel free to say whatever it is. What is your experience? Any difficulties? I know I had some when I first tried it. I can offer up that I tried to hold my breath in. There was a natural thing to hold it in. Also was quite forceful, you know, like, and then I was quite harsh. And the whole thing here is to be in synchronicity. So it's gentle and it's at ease. Your out breaths are longer than your in breaths. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. When your out breaths are longer than your in breaths, we're putting our foot on the decelerator. That's always helpful. The difference with coherent breathing is you're synchronizing. Remember your brain, your heartbeat, and your lungs. It's quite unique, keeps you awake, aware, and it also allows you to bring in that psychological safety, shortage of space, to have a full breath. Absolutely. So what happens is that we're not used to breathing like this anymore. Sometimes we don't have the lung capacity, but this is what builds the lung capacity, right? So just remember, we're trying it. It was too slow for me. All right. And you know, this is important that you can also make this your own. So depending on your height, that impacts how many breaths a minute you take. Depending if you're a child, your heart beats faster. That depends on, you know, anything lower than 10 is fantastic for you. So try it out, see how it works. And you can always download a timer that works for you, right? It doesn't have to be 5 breaths a minute, but give it a go. You did feel like holding your breath, you're holding your breath. Absolutely. So when we start, that's how it feels, like we're holding in our breath, because it's unnatural for us for now to have a slow breathing, right? My sense of it is to give this another go. Let's try this for another 2 minutes. You know what to expect. And with this time, actually, I'm going to invite you to take in a very comfortable posture. If you need to first stand up, please do so, because that's very, very helpful. And I'm going to invite you to just sit comfortably and allow yourself, if you feel safe, to close your eyes. Thanks, Chanel, and I'll tell you to start in a minute. Yes, my breathing changed as soon as information came in that we're going to count. We're not counting. We're just going to breathe in. That's the lovely thing about the chimes. Breathing in, just think of it more slowly, more gently, right? And then we release gently and slowly. So just think of a sense of creating a natural rhythm. We know when we're in a natural rhythm, and allow yourselves the time to do that. So Chanel, if you want to start it, and this time we're going to do it for 2 minutes. So take your time. And breathing out. So enjoy it. Gently breathing out. Breathing in. Breathing out. minute. Let's go for another minute. Breathing in. Then gently out. Breathing in. And out. Breathing in. And out. In and out. The last breath in. Last breath out. Thank you, Chanel. So just give a moment, as Nomzamo was talking about earlier, just feel the impact that has on your nervous system. And simply allow your breath to return to its natural rhythm, which will probably be a bit slower. And I just wanted to open up, as I end, just a minute of questions if anyone's got any. But just to say that coherent breathing has no contraindications. Only if you're pregnant, speak to your doctor first so they're aware that you're slowing down your breathing because you've got a living being inside you. So it's always good to be observed, but it has no contraindications. What we've found with I've been working closely with the person who's been running these studies, is that they've been working with people with severe post-traumatic stress, and breathing this way for 20 minutes, twice a day, allows people to regulate their nervous system in very severe circumstances and to gain sleep. So an important thing here for you to know is that when we breathe like this for 20 minutes, it took me a while to get into 20 minutes, and it's always good to do it conducively when you've got time. So don't try it out, while you're doing something else. It doesn't work. As with anything else that you're learning, you're doing that thing only. So when you've got time, lie down or sit down for 2 minutes, and you can build it up gently to 20 minutes. It really changes your whole nervous system. And it then allows you to be able to use it when you do need it most, in those situations where you are feeling unsafe. So is it like meditating or some sort? Well, it's breath work, and meditation is a very huge word, which I'm not going to get into right now. Just see it as a best practice. We've all got that common nervous system, and the most effective way to calm our nervous system is through. It can make you dizzy, absolutely. That is something to consider. None of this, as I said, is going to actually be harmful to you. It's just a matter of, you're going from a high breath where we are on that threat mode right down to a decelerated mode. So that interval in between can make us feel a bit dizzy and so forth. That's why I wanted to talk about the difficulties, but there are no contraindications. The great thing to know is that it really helps with sleep. So exactly. So if you feel sleepy, it's because you are tired. If you do this during the day, you're going to be awake and aware, and it charges up your parasympathetic nervous system for 3 hours. If you want to do it just around 6 o'clock, it also allows you to sleep better, because you can't actually fall asleep if you've got an accelerated breathing. So I hope that's helpful. We are obviously out of time. If anyone wants to write to me to ask more questions or anything else, I'm sure Ilse will give you my details.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you so much. That was such a perfect way of ending today. And it really, I could feel how the whole energy in the whole room kind of settled down. And so we can imagine how when we start our meetings with a check-in round or with a gratitude round, if we breathe together at the beginning or at the end of our meetings, even just for 2 minutes, how it can change the dynamic and the environment in which we operate. And I just want to lift out one comment from Terence, who's a freediver. Who knew? And he says, as a result of quite a few unsafe experiences that got built in there, and he's recommending that this really, really works, and recommend that we all try it. And there are quite a few other messages in the chat, as well as appreciation for free diving. So who knows what we might have sparked today in this session. But Jenny, I want to say thank you for the way in which you bring your work to the world, the way in which you embody your work, how generously you share your work, and may those blessings be returned upon you 1,000-fold. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone. And thank you for the great work that you're all doing. Thank you.
Colleagues, it is 1:01 and we've got some homework for you for today. We've got some homework. And I'm asking Chanel to just screen share for us. We would love to give you a little activity to complete today's engagement with, today's session in the forum. Remember, honking is helpful, breathing is helpful, stretching is helpful, voicing out is helpful, managing our nervous systems is very helpful. And what we are wanting you to do to remember today to remember this day of the themes of transformation, of wellness, of psychological safety, the theme of social cohesion, of staying close to your neighbor, but not bumping rudely into your neighbor, not transgressing or violating your neighbor. And we want to ask you to do a little journaling activity. And we have just had 5 breaths. Now we're going to do 5 lines. This is a little poem activity. It is called a Tshangase. I think the word Tshangase refers to 5. And the way it works is that you choose a word. And so we want to encourage you to think of one word that came up for you today, in your experiences of today. In the Transformation Council, in the wellness sessions, in the psychological safety sessions, in your courageous conversations, one word. Your second line is a 2-word phrase that relates to your word above. Just 2 words that relate to your first word. Your third line, Nomcebo is a beautiful word. Your third line is 3 adjectives. 3 descriptive words, 3 describing words that describe your first word. And your fourth line is a little 4-word phrase that relates to your first word. And then your final line is 1 word again. It is a word that's similar to line 1, but it's a different word. It is a synonym for line 1. Chanel, let's look at some examples and then we can come back to the instruction slide. So here are some examples for you. Watermelon, we're coming up for summer. Watermelon, juicy, sweet, dripping, slurping, smacking, so messy to eat, yummy. One for the slightly more deeper members of our community: soul, invisible force, questioning, searching, yearning, waiting for a purpose, life. So those are 2 examples of Tshangase. Going back to the instructions, Chanel, going back 1 slide. So here are your instructions. One word that you choose that has emerged for you from today, 2 words that relate, 3 describing words, a 4-word phrase, and a synonym. And we would love, if anybody has already achieved their Tshangase, we would love for you to pop it in the chat. If anybody is ready to just read us one or two to close our day. Otherwise, we are inviting you to bring your Tshangase with you tomorrow, and we will do some checking in with our Tshangase in the large room and also in our check-in groups. And then the final invitation from today, Chanel, is around the mandala. Do you want to just say something about that?
Yes, thanks, Ilse. So we are asking you to bring with something from nature to tomorrow's day. So if you go for a walk this afternoon after work, or you don't have time for a walk, just pop into your garden, see what you can find there, and yeah, look for an object that connects to your experience of the forum so far, or connects with your experience of the forum so far. And then we'll all do something with it tomorrow at the closing ceremony. Thanks.
I see there is a very powerful Tshangase in the chat. Des, do you want to just share that with us? Or Christina, if you want to unmute, you can share that with us.
I can do that. This is something that came up in our conversation in our group earlier, so I thought let's tackle it. So the word is fear, speaking out, paralyzing, debilitating, irrational, needs courage to face, and it's scared. I know that's not a very positive way
it's
to end,
powerful.
but that's what a lot of people
that's
still do experience, the fear of speaking out.
That is powerful. That is powerful. We don't want to embrace toxic positivity in this space. We want to face the challenges and the difficult things. That is very beautiful. Thank you so much, Christina. Michelle, please share with us yours.
Okay, so mine is care, and peaceful, energizing, healthy. Remember to breathe deeply, nurture.
Oh, beautiful. Isn't it amazing how those 2 Tshangase speak to each other? Like the one is breathing in and the other one is breathing out. Beautiful. Perfect. I think that's a perfect way to end today. We look forward to your Tshangase tomorrow morning. We're going to check in with some Tshangase in the big room and in the small room. Thank you, colleagues. We hope you enjoyed this day as much as we did. Des, Chanel, it feels like it was an incredibly powerful day. Thank you to everybody's contribution. Thank you to everybody's participation. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow, where we experiment with shared leadership, where we're going to have cafe conversations, where we will be consulting with you on the assessment process, on the different elements of the assessment process, and where we look how we move forward together as regional clusters, as disciplinary clusters. So tomorrow is an action day, a day of giving feedback, of crafting, getting closer to our understanding of how the assessment process will work and how we can continue to reach out and learn from each other. There's another beautiful one from Nonkululeko in another beautiful Tshangase. Listen, pay attention, encourage without harming, relax, breath. Beautiful. There's one on autonomy. Beautiful. They're coming into the chat now. I'm aware that we are over time and that some people might have to leave. You're welcome to leave. Colleagues who have to check out, we see you tomorrow. Colleagues who still want to stay a few minutes and post in the chat, you're welcome to stay a few minutes longer. We love you and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Hey guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye everyone. Till tomorrow.